Good morning, Year 1. I hope you're all okay. For today's maths lesson, you are learning to measure length and height using objects. For your anchor, I would like you to circle the shortest animal. Pause the video now and have a go. Okay, so the shortest animal would be the ladybird. If we're having a look at the length, it is shorter than all of the other animals. And today we are measuring length and height using objects. So we can use lots of different objects to measure with. And in this example, we are going to be measuring the height of the giraffe using blocks. And when we are using any sort of object to measure, we need to make sure we do it accurately. So we have to make sure that we are lining them up with the bottom of the object, and then we are stacking them so they're just touching. There shouldn't be any gaps between the objects. And then when I am in line with the giraffe, I can stop. So to work out the height, I count how many blocks I have used. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The giraffe is 5 blocks tall. Here we have been measuring the height of these different bears using blocks, and we need to work out how many blocks tall each bear is. So Bobby is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks tall. Sandy is 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks tall. And George is 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks as well. And now we need to use the words taller, shorter, or the same to complete the sentences below. So Bobby is something than Sandy. Bobby is something than George. Sandy is something than Bobby. Sandy and George are the something height. So you are comparing the heights of the bears to fill in these gaps. You're using these 3 words. Okay, pause the video now and have a go. Okay, so Bobby, we can see is taller than Sandy. We can see that Bobby is taller than George. Sandy is shorter than Bobby. And Sandy and George are the same height. So we're now going to move on to measuring length. And here we've got a sandcastle and it has been measured using shells. And it says the sandcastle is 5 shells long. However, there is a mistake here, and the question says, what is wrong with these measurements? So the shells have been used to measure the length, and the problem is that each shell is a different size. They're not all the same. So some of the shells are quite small and some of them are quite big. But when we are measuring length or height, we have to make sure that the object we are using is the same size each time. So we should just choose one size shell to measure the length, not all different sizes. So that is the mistake here. Okay, so this time blocks have been used to measure the length of the sandcastle, and it says the sandcastle is 5 blocks long. But what is wrong with this measurement? So the blocks are all the same size this time, which is good, but the mistake is that some have got big gaps in between them and some have got little gaps. To do it properly, the blocks should be touching each other. We shouldn't have all of these gaps in between them. Okay, so that's the mistake this time. And here we are using shells that are all the same size, and we can see that they are lined up properly so there aren't any big gaps in between them. So this one has been done correctly. And the question says, how many shells long is the sandcastle? So let's count the shells up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The sandcastle is 6 shells long. Okay, so here are some different objects, and we have been measuring the length using paper clips. And you need to work out how long each object is using the paper clips to measure the length. Okay, so have a go at answering these questions and pause the video. So the envelope we can see is 3 paper clips long. The carrot is 4. And the toy van is 2 paper clips long. And this time we are measuring the length of the same object, but we are using different units. We are using cubes this time. So you're doing exactly the same thing, but measuring the length using cubes. So pause the video now and have a go at answering each question. Okay, so the envelope is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cubes long. The carrot is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cubes long. And the toy van is 1, 2, 3, 4. And now here we've got a reasoning question. And it says the carrot is 4 paper clips long. The toy van is 4 cubes long. Does that mean that they are the same length? So you need to have a think and you're answering yes or no. And then I would like you to think of a reason why. So I want you to explain how you know. Pause the video now. See if you can tell your adult what you think the answer is. Okay, so here the objects that we have used to measure the length are different each time. So we've used paper clips here to measure the length of the carrot and then cubes to measure the length of the toy van. But we cannot use different objects to measure and compare. We have to use the same objects. So we should either stick to using paper clips for both or use cubes for both. So the answer is no, it does not mean that they are the same length. And that is because we must use the same units. So here, cubes have been used to measure both. And the carrot is 8 cubes long. We know that the toy van is 4. So now that we have used the same object to measure the length, we know that the carrot must be longer. Okay, so this time the question says, a flamingo is shorter than the giraffe, but taller than the tortoise. How many cubes could the flamingo measure? Find 2 possibilities. Okay, so we know that the flamingo is taller than the tortoise, so it must be taller than 2 cubes high. But it is shorter than the giraffe, so it must be less than this amount of cubes high. So the height of the flamingo is somewhere between these 2 lines. So we've got to find 2 possibilities. The flamingo could be 3 cubes tall, because then it would be taller than the tortoise and shorter than the giraffe. And it could also be 4 cubes tall. Because then it would still be taller than the tortoise but shorter than the giraffe. And there are lots of other answers that you could have had for this one, but we've just chosen 2. Okay, so these are the questions you will be answering today. For silver, you need to measure how long each of the objects is using cubes. You can ignore question D if you are working from home. And question 2 is a reasoning question. Rosie thinks the pen is 7 cubes long. You need to say yes or no as to whether you agree with Rosie, and then you could perhaps write a sentence to explain how you know. And then for gold, we've got another reasoning question. Tommy is measuring these objects, and you need to decide if you agree with what Tommy thinks. So again, you can write yes or no, and then write a sentence to explain how you know. For question 6a, you need to explain the mistake that Tim has made when measuring the length of the spade. So think about how you should be measuring properly. And for question 5, you need to decide how many cubes the sock could measure. Find 2 possibilities. So this is very similar to the question we've just done together. And finally, for platinum, you've got some more challenging reasoning and problem-solving questions to try.